Welcome to Team Bhutan's first YouTube video. Today we'll be profiling a Viking Trap Tricks deck, which is quite unique to the format, and this deck has had quite good results at locals recently. So without further ado, I'll start the deck profile. First of all, they have two Grunecks. Grunecks is quite a staple in most Vikings decks. If you don't know what it does, it comes back during the standard phase when it's destroyed the turn before and blows up all monsters on the field. So basically it's a dark old monster form. This deck does have a particular problem with breakthrough skill, which is around a lot of this format. But hence you chain things like Circle of Vikings, which I'll show you later, and you can still get the effects off. So that's two Grunecks. Then you have two free action in fact. Yugioh is quite staple in Vikings again. It destroys the Grunecks and destroys the Brongs. Now the Brongs, this is in hand or field, Brongs when destroyed will get their effects and get you the Onslaught, which will get you, or a Circle, which will then get you the Grunecks primarily, or you can get a Yugioh off it or whatever. So this deck is sort of a newer version of Perfect Circle in some respects, in the fact that the deck recycles each other round and round, and that's what makes any deck key these days. Burning Abyss recycle themselves, Shadow recycles themselves. And I think for a deck to be able to be successful, it needs to be able to recycle and you reuse its resources. And I think this Viking deck does that. So that's two Grunecks, three Yugioh, three Barong, as previously mentioned. Now, a new addition. This card was 1 last format, but since it's a new format, we run 3 Wolfbark, understandably. This card is actually ridiculously good. It doesn't have the limitations of let's say, a Trap Tricks Dionea or a Gishki Beast, for example. It can be used once per turn, so if you use this effect to get a Barong and you circle into the Barong, this resolves in graveyard. So you still get the plus off it. So actually Wolfbark can be used multiple times if you manage to protect it with spells and traps. And also to help, it says fire, so you can actually go Barong, circle into the Wolfbark and plus like mad, which is why Wolfbark's really good in this deck. Next we have two Bear. Bear in this deck, you could cut to 1, you could run 1 Gorilla. It could be advised in this format. But in this build I choose to run 2 because I think it's a good out to a lot of things. Dante, things like that. I appreciate Dante will get its effect, but it just helps you beat through the monsters. This is your deck's problem. You've got the 2/7 Grunexes to beat through your massive monsters. But when you don't have the Grunexes on the field, Bear's another out. Hence we run 2 of them. Here's the unique thing about this Viking deck. 3 Marmillo and 2 Dionea. Marmillo is basically a +1 on legs. Let's not lie about this. Marmillo basically, if you don't know what it does, gets a hole card, trap card to your hand when you summon it, which is basically a bottomless, a trap hole, a Trap Tricks trap hole, nightmare, time space trap hole, whatever. And when it's special summoned by, let's say, Call the Haunted, you get to pop a spell and trap. So it's a really good card. It surprised me this card wasn't limited in the ban list, to be perfectly honest, because it's a +1 on legs. There's a deck that revolves around it hat, and it's really a card that's been doing well in Japan, and I still don't understand why, but only Konami will know. Dionea basically gets back the Marmillo, but at the same time, if Dionea is special summoned, you get to set a bottomless to the end of your next turn. So it's good to stall the opponent and put the opponent on your playing field. If you have this and a bottomless set, it forces your opponent into plays or to stall their plays for turn, which gives you lots of advantage. Next you have the staples of Vikings. 3 Onslaught of Vikings. If you don't know what this does, you can activate 1 per turn. You special some Grunecks or any of the Viking monsters from deck. What's worth noting on this card is if they solemn warn it, you can activate another one from hand. And that's worth noting for any Viking player or budding Viking player out there. You need to know runes on this card to be able to use it properly. 3 Circle of Vikings. As mentioned before, this gets Wolfbark. That's the only reason behind it. It goes around things like arc. They target with arc, attaches cost, chain this. Your monster targets at the target for the monster is no longer there. Then you get the Garunex, or you get rid of the Garunex to get the another Garunex, and you can loop them. This card is very, very good. You can only activate one per turn, but you really only have one anyway, and it's searchable off Barong. Next we have 3 Tenki. This is what makes deck flow. Tenki can search Bear, it can search Wolfbark, it can search Barong, and it can also search Yaksha. There's about 11 cards in your deck that you can search with Tenki, and even if it gets it's MST, if you didn't know, if you MST a Tenki when it's activated and misses timing to get the search, being the MST Tenki is saving your supply squads, which is the next card in the list. This card was released, must have been 6 months ago. It's good in Fire Kings because they all get destroyed by card effects. So by card effect, by battle, you're going to get a draw. This is your draw engine. So if they're MST in the Tenkis, you're not particularly bothered because you've got your supply squads, which are actually really good, and you constantly plus off this deck in your opponent's turn and your turn. Now this card, it's limited for a reason. This is a win condition for the deck. At the end of the day, this will get you Yaksha and Barong. That's simple enough. You might think, yeah, it's only 2 monsters. That's particularly 4 monsters of one card. That's a +3 on its own. Then you make the overlays and the XYZs, and this card becomes incredibly good. If you don't know what a Kindling does, read it up. 2 MST. Yeah, 2 MST. This card, I prefer over Lance in this deck. Personally, I think this deck has a problem with skill drain. And with skill drain there, it's been using Yang Zing and decks like that. And also, it's going to hit your backer in the end phase, which will be problematic for you. I've noticed a lot of shadow decks are really starting to create at the moment, which can affect this deck quite dramatically. Next we have 3 Traptrix Trapole Nightmare. Now, this is searchable off my Milio. This is really good, this format. It's either this or Time Space. I mean, Time Space is another option. I think it'd be more relevant when Quill-Offs come out. But Traptrix Trapole Nightmare is really good against the meta. Winder doesn't activate admittedly, but this can destroy Construct. And I think that's the key thing, because Winder is the problem in this deck, but you have the Wolfbark, you have the Garunex come back for that. You have many outs to Winder in this deck, so I think in terms of main things, it's really good. And you can do this to a Dante as well. Yeah, they may get their effects, but at the end of the day, you've stopped them having basically 2-5 beat and 2-5 defense on board. So this card's really good. Staples, 1 compulsory, 1 solemn warning, and 1 bottomless. Next, the extra deck. First of all, 2 Brother of the Firefist Tide King. This basically searches Tenki when it's summoned, and it is a skill drain on legs, apart from the Beast Warriors. Doesn't bother you. Garunex activates the graveyard, and the rest of your monsters are Beast Warriors. What a shame. Really good card in this deck. Scion. This card needs no introduction. I don't think it's relevant in this format as it used to be. Basically because the drawing 5 on your first turn rule. I don't think this card is as viable as it used to be, but you still need that. It's exciting night. Arc, we want this does.
Duh.
Cristal. This is a great out to Shadow. I personally think this should be ran to instead. I might be editing it. This bounces Winder. Winder is your problem to this deck. If you play Shadow, you've got an insta bad matchup instantly. So Cristal's a really key card in your extra deck. Black Ship, says it all. Damn Direwolf. Now Merrigeist. The odd chance you will see Burning Abyss. The odd chance you will see the hand sided. This card is good out, and you don't want to be siding in extra deck cards. That's bloody stupid. At the end of the day, this card is just in there because it's lots of a good amount of space. It's a 2-1 beat that can stop the hands. It's just not particularly bad.
Stops Zhang as well.
Stops Yang Zing. All those decks like that, yeah.
You got your own deck wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Cowboy looks pretty in ultimate, but this is just for sacky shit wins. And still be honest, they are sacky as shit. I mean, Cowboy, just attack position effect's not that bad, but most people are going to sit behind it defence, show the Cowboy an extra deck and they're going to win. Cardinal. This is an interesting card. It targets, unfortunately, but the ability to put your Tenkies back in late game, this is fantastic. It gives you the push and the oomph to be able to beat over monsters, spin things back to deck. Again, it's good against Shadow. Perhaps Berserk. Now, we were debating this card. It's good in certain matchups. The Burn and Abyss matchup, possibly a Shadow matchup. The problem with this card is quite weak. But equip it to a Tie King, that's a 3/4 Tie King at the end of the day. And I don't think many decks can't get over a 3/4 Tie King, so this is why the only reason I run it. And if you're rekindling into a Tie King and this, you've pretty much won the game. Heartland Drago.
Saki wins.
Saki wins, exactly. Saki wins all over the place. And it's not a bad card, even if you're stalling in time, you do 2k and sit behind the Tenkies, they can't attack you, like lol. 5 land for the 2 Garoon X's. Simply, if you get 2 Garoon X's out and you're in a position where you need 5 grand, it's there. And that's the deck profile for today. Any questions, please comment below and don't be afraid to subscribe. That's Chris Hemmings and I'm out.
Peace.